Good morning. Today is Monday, October 2nd, 2023. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein was asked a question: is it permissible for a synagogue to have a flag of Israel in the synagogue sanctuary? There are a lot of synagogues, especially in the United States, that have an American flag. Is it okay to also have an Israeli flag? Now, the person who was asking this question was not a particularly Zionist person. The places that do have an Israeli flag are usually very strongly Zionist places. The synagogue that I served before coming to Montreal, Young Israel of New Haven, we had a flag of the United States and we had a flag of Israel. And both of those were very important to us at the front of the sanctuary. But this person was asking Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, is there anything wrong with it? And so Rabbi Moshe Feinstein said, well, the symbol of the Israeli flag, which we call the Magen David, the Star of David, that is a symbol that has been used among the Jewish people for centuries. And the origin of that symbol is unclear, said Rabbi Feinstein. And therefore, since it is for centuries associated as a Jewish symbol, there's nothing wrong with having such a flag in a synagogue. Notwithstanding what Rabbi Moshe Feinstein said, there are several commentators who say that that design, the star, two stars inverted, one on top of the other, that in fact was the design on the shield of David's army. David HaMelech, King David, had an army, soldiers had a shield, and there was a design. And the design is what we know of as Magen David, and that's why it's called Magen David, the shield of David. It's the design that was on the shield in David's army. My Rebbe, Rabbi Moshe Heinemann, explained that if that is the case, the design is actually a stylized version of the name David, Dalet, Vav, Dalet. And if you look at it carefully, you'll see a Dalet and a Vav and a Dalet going around in a circle. All of the lines form either a Dalet or a Vav. And that's why it was David's symbol. It was the monogram of his name in a stylized fashion. And that's why it was put on the shield of his soldiers. So let's ask three questions. Number one, why put this symbol on the shield of David's army? What does it represent? Number two, there's a contradiction from another source. There's a medrash, a comment of our rabbis during the Talmudic era, which says that the shield of David's army had a menorah. Menorah was the symbol on David's army. So which one was it? Was the symbol on the shield of David's army the menorah or the Star of David? And number three, why am I talking about this today? What is the connection to Sukkot? So what I want to share with you is partially based on a lecture that I heard many years ago from Rabbi Yisroel Reisman. At the end of the book of Shmuel, the prophet Samuel, which describes the end of David's life, there is a cryptic passage. It is a description of the last battle that King David entered into. Of course, David HaMelech, King David, was a fierce warrior from the time he was a teenager throughout his life. He led his army to victory throughout his life. But this is the last battle. Vatihi od milchama la plishtim es Yisrael. There was another war between the Plishtim, the Philistines, against Israel. Remember, there had been wars between them all throughout David's life. Vayered David va'avodav imo vayilachamu es Plishtim. And David and his soldiers went to fight this battle. Vayoaf David. And David was weak. David became faint. This is the first time in David's life, he's near the end of his life. It's the first time in his life that we see any kind of weakness or inability to succeed on the part of David. In a certain sense, it's very, very sad. This is the elderly king finally not able to do what he is trying to do. Vayoaf David. V'yishbi benov, and there was a person whose name was Yishbi benov, asher bi lidei harafa, he was the son of a giant, umishkal keno shalosh meos mishkal dechoshes, the weight of his spear was 300 pieces of copper. It was a gigantic, gigantic spear. V'hu chagar chadasha, and he had a newly sharpened sword. Vayomer lahakos David, and he was about to smite David. David was about to be killed in this battle by this man, Yishbi benov. Vayazar lo Avishai ben Tzruya. Avishai ben Tzruya, David's loyal general friend, came to the aid. Vayaches aplishti vayimisehu. He smote Yishbi benov and killed him. And David was saved. His life was saved. However, as nishpu'u, as a result of this incident, this close call with death, as nishpu'u anshe David lo lemar, the household of David, the advisors, his family, made him swear, lo seitze od itanu lemilchama, you're not going out to war anymore. V'lo sechabe es ner Yisrael, we don't want our king to be killed in battle. You have to stay back. Your time for battling is past. We can't take the chance that you would fall in battle. Okay. The Talmud in Masechta Sanhedrin gives us more detail about this incident, and it is absolutely fascinating. The Talmud says as follows. First of all, who is this person, Yishbi benov? This person was the brother of Goliath. Remember when David was just a teenager and he stood in front of the army against the Plishtim, and Goliath, the giant, stood against him, and David, with his slingshot, was able to fell Goliath. It's what propelled David to leadership and ultimately to becoming the king. Now it's all these years later, decades later, and Yishbi benov says, that's the man that killed my brother Goliath. I am going to get him this time. Now, the version in the Talmud is a little bit different than what it says in the Navi, because the Talmud says that Yishbi benov captured David and bound him up in a rope so that David could not move, and put him under an olive press. Now, you know how an olive press works. You put the olives here, and then you have this great stone that comes down to crush the olives. So Yishbi benov took David HaMelech, King David, who is now tied up and cannot escape, and put him under this grinding stone, and Yishbi Benov started to push down on the stone, which would have crushed and killed David. Is Abeli Nisa, a miracle happened. Makale Ara Metuse, somehow the earth underneath David gave way. So as the crushing stone came down, David's body descended into the ground and he was not crushed. It was a miracle. Hashem performed a miracle that although it looked like for certain David would be killed, but he was saved. Then, that's when Avishai saw what was happening, and Avishai came to rescue David. But when Yishbi Benov sees Avishai coming to rescue David, so Avishai Benov wants to kill David right away before Avishai comes to save him. So what he does is, Paske ledava le'ela, he tossed, remember David is wrapped up in a rope, and Yishbi Benov is a giant. He throws David up into the air, and then he holds his spear, this giant sharp spear, like this, so that David would fall down on the spear and be killed by the spear. Amar Avishai Shem, Avishai was able, using the name of God, we don't exactly understand what this means, to create a miracle. Ukme leDavid ben Shmaya la'ara, and David was suspended. He was hovering in the air between heaven and earth. He did not fall down onto the spear. He was saved by a second miracle. He was saved by a second miracle. So the Talmud is telling us that it's not just that David was weakened and Avishai came to save him. David was actually captured and was about to be killed not once but more than once. And only through a miracle, the first time the miracle was that the ground below David gave way. And the second time, the miracle was that David was able to stay suspended in the air. And the other times that Yishai Benov came after David, he was able to survive until finally Avishai killed Yishbi Benov. Okay, that's the story in the Talmud. And again, that was the last battle. Family and advisors decided David will not go out to battle anymore. But listen, please, to the Pardes Yosef. Pardes Yosef is an early commentator. And he says that this is the moment when David created a new emblem. He was in trouble from above. The olive press was about to come down from him, on top of him, and he was saved by God through a miracle. He was in danger from below, the spear that he was about to fall on, and he was saved by God. He was in danger from this enemy coming at him from every direction, and he was saved by God. That's the meaning of the 6 corners of this symbol. 6 directions. The Magen David is the emblem, the symbol to teach us Yeshuas Hashem, that God saved David. And he was in danger from every single direction. Left and right, front and back, up and down. And God saved him from every danger. And at the end of his life, David ordered that this emblem be placed on the shield of every one of his soldiers to inspire them, to give them hope, to save them from despair, so that they would understand, even in the most desperate circumstances, God can still save them. God can still perform a miracle. They can still be saved by God. During his lifetime, the emblem on the shield of David's army was a menorah. Yes, that's correct. But at the end of his life, he created a new symbol to teach us that as we approach what appears to be the end, what appears to be defeat, what appears to be darkness, Yeshuas Hashem, salvation from God, can come at any moment from every direction. That lesson is precisely what we reenact with Lulav and Etrog. We take a Lulav and Etrog every day of Sukkot, except for Shabbos, and we point it in 6 directions. Forwards, to the right, to the back of us, to the left of us, above us, below us. And we say, Ana Hashem Hoshiana. Please Hashem, save us. Just like you saved David from every single direction, save us from every direction, from danger and difficulty that comes at us from every direction. The waving of a Lulav and Etrog is precisely the same message as the Magen David, the shield of David. And clearly, that symbolism is appropriate for the modern Israeli flag. And that symbolism is more appropriate today than ever. That we have faith in God, danger comes at us from every direction, from all sides and up and down. And we have faith that Hashem will protect us from danger that comes in every direction, just as God protected David from every direction. And we should never give in to despair. We have to always remember the potential for God's salvation. And so as we wave the Lulav on Sukkot, we should remind ourselves of what it means for our hope and optimism for the future of Israel and for every one of us in our own lives. Yeshuas Hashem, the salvation of God, can come at any moment from every single direction. My friends, I wish you a great day, Moed Tov, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person.